What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Young Gun Show. I'm your host, Will ND, and with me, I got Jackson Johnson. What's going on?
What's going on with you? Well, I'm doing pretty awesome.
We got Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports.
Glad to be here, man.
We have Buckeye Mike from the channel Buckeye Mike.
Howdy.
And we have Austin Williams, big-time Louisville Cardinal fan and Dallas Cowboy fan as well.
Go Cowboys. Go Irish.
Cards.
And before
Go Cards.
we start
Go
the show,
Bama.
from
Go
the bottom
Tide.
of our hearts at the Young
Go
Guns,
Tar
we
Heels
wish
Hoosiers.
you, the audience, a happy, fantastic Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm. And
Hopefully
prayers out
everybody
there.
got a box of chocolates or something good. Or some roses if you're,
Mhm.
something like that,
There we
And
go.
prayers out there for Michigan State and everyone that's been affected there as well.
Yeah,
Yes, it's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. We're saying a lot of prayers for you tonight.
First off, in our show tonight, we're gonna congratulate the Alabama Crimson Tide on their first ever #1 ranking. So, congratulations,
Since 2000.
Jackson.
Well, it's pretty cool, but it's actually our second time in school history, and it's the
Oh.
first time since 2003 where we didn't have any Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. The dark.
Yeah, and I was in the womb.
Oh man!
Wait,
It's
wait,
pretty
guys, hold
awesome. Huh? What'd you say, Will?
Alabama plays basketball?
Yeah.
I did not know
Apparently they
Alabama
do.
played basketball.
Mm-hmm.
They
I'll
got
say
Nate Oates.
this is
now,
shocking
not
news
Avery
to me,
Johnson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's getting to the point where Alabama might be getting better at their basketball than they are at their football. It's all right with me at the moment.
Mm-hmm. What does your dad think, Jeffrey?
Well, I mean, he loves the fact that Alabama basketball is, great, and Brandon Miller's a stud, and Nate Oates is not going to Texas, hopefully, and Alabama's #1 in basketball. But still, it's Alabama football. You got to have them being at the top. But it is nice to see Alabama basketball playing. Well, I wanted Avery Johnson to work out, really badly when he was at Alabama. But when Colin Sexton that year, they didn't do well. It was over. But now, I mean, he's got a team, transfers and freshmen, just the right blend of everything, and they're really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to our first game. It is the Crimson Tide taking on the Volunteers. Jackson.
The funny thing about this game, Will, is that even though Alabama's lost to Gonzaga and Oklahoma and Connecticut, those three teams that have beaten Alabama have one thing in common: they've all collapsed. So I'll say this is kind of a win-win for Alabama because if they win, they're still #1. If they lose, it's imminent that we're going to see Tennessee collapse even more as the season goes on. So it's kind of a win-win for Alabama, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
I will say, not to cut anybody off, but to Jackson's point, that loss to Oklahoma is going to look bad on the resume. Since Oklahoma's not doing too hot now.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this one, Mike?
Sorry about that. Basically, if you look at what Jackson just said about a team falling apart, and he did reference Tennessee falling apart further because they've kind of already collapsed a bit, losing their last two on buzzer beaters per se, but still Tennessee in the top 10, so it's not a massive collapse. UConn's hanging in there, so they haven't completely free fall. They're still hanging in there. Oklahoma, they were already down. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think Alabama, destroyed their psyche or anything because they were already on basically a 500 team. And to your point down there, Austin, as well, I don't necessarily think that losing at Oklahoma was a bad loss if you go by the net, because I think Oklahoma might be still a quad 1, top 75 in the net. They might be, or if they're not, they're just on the outside. So it's a quad 2 loss for Alabama, which is not a bad loss by the committee. Oddly enough, or whatever you want to call the people that, do it. I don't know if they call it a committee like they do in football, whatever, but it's not really a bad loss. But I'm rambling a little bit on all that. But the point is that on this game, Alabama everyone's probably expecting them to win because I think a lot of people expected Auburn to upset Alabama because it was the rivalry game. It was at Auburn, and Alabama took care of business. But they did lose at Oklahoma, but that was a non-conference game. But the weird thing about this game is that Tennessee is a team that they choke in bad, against bad teams or teams that are worse than them. They play really, really good against teams better than them. It's just for whatever reason, all their best performances this year against teams, they beat Kansas by 14. So it's just weird how that goes. So if Tennessee plays like the Tennessee in those games against the high quality opponents where they give it all they got, I think Tennessee's going to win 79-74 over Alabama.
Well, so who's making the first pick tonight? Let's see.
Okay.
I guess it's me for right now.
I guess we're skipping the picks.
I'm going to go Alabama over Tennessee on this one. It's going to be an Alabama 75-61 victory over the Tennessee Volunteers.
Mike, let's go. What do you think about this one?
Okay, so buckle your seatbelts for this one. This is a little long. So first, let's look at Bama. They're the new number one in the country, like Will said to begin the show. Awesome. Great job. Congrats. Brandon Miller. Pay attention to Brandon Miller for Alabama. He's going to be the top guy for Alabama. He is averaging 19 points, 8 rebounds. And he's headed towards a few national awards. The Ohio transfer, Mark Sears, averages 14 points and 4 rebounds. He's a fantastic addition to the squad. He had a breakout performance last month in a road game at Arkansas with 26 points. There's plenty of talent in the rest of the rotation with Noah Clowney averaging 10 and 8 and Rylan Griffin averaging 7 points, 3 rebounds, whose 16-point effort led the path for a road win at Auburn last weekend. Bama excels on both sides of the ball. They have efficient defense despite playing off high tempo, and the D doesn't force many turnovers but rarely allows high shooting numbers. Already finely tuned machine under Oates. Adding freshman of the year was a bonus, and it made the team more explosive. So if we go over and we look across the floor at Tennessee, Tennessee is coming into this game as a desperate dog here. They're desperate because they're starting to fall on that fringe. So they're looking for something to go right for them. They lost a pair of buzzer beaters. To his point, he beat me to it. Last week, dropping games that they should have won, but they're still in good shape. What's up, TGD?
How's it going, TGD? Oh yeah, that's a great point right there. Shout out to Kansas State being picked last in their preseason poll to be currently ranked at the top 20. Great season, no one saw coming. You got that right, TGD. You were right on the money on that. That Big 12, man, it is the best conference in all of college basketball.
And thank you, TGD, for coming over from the Pro Football Network Discord.
And ironically, to say that about K-State is that they just lost to Oklahoma.
Yep. They got shot tonight by the Boomer Sooners, which
so
basically
Oklahoma's okay. They have not completely free-falled, man. They're still okay.
Well, Oklahoma, if they want to basically get in the NCAA tournament, they have to win out the regular season, and they may have to win the Big 12 tournament, so to speak.
My fault. So Tennessee is still in good shape. They have to win this game because it would give wonders for confidence and the big mo for them. Their lineup's full of talent up and down the roster. You have guard Santiago Vescovi, who averages 12 and 4. He's already been a key piece for Barnes' system for years. You got guard Zakai Ziegler, averaging 11 and 5. He's a great assist and steal numbers. Forward Oliver Nakhol, he averages 11 and 5. He has ability on both sides of the ball. You got guard Tyreek Key, who averages 9 points and 3 rebounds. He's the Indiana State transfer and the leading scorer for the last 2 games for Tennessee. So the big key takeaways here, if Alabama has their way to make them race up and down the court all night long, but they also have the ability to play at a slow pace. So basically, if you look at Alabama, they have the ability to switch the way that you have to play them on a dime. They can play 2 different paces. The Tide already have won 8 games on the road, and Tennessee has shown that they can blow home games. Will the crowd play a factor? With home court advantage being key in most basketball games. 3 of 4 last games have been losses and wrecked the Big Mo for Tennessee. They have to limit Miller, the powerful offense, and have consistency from the offense. So, when a full breakdown like this, Alabama's coming off the high of being number 1 and everything else I just broke down. I'm going to go Vols 72, Roll Tide 68.
Rocky Top, Tennessee. Rocky Top,
Don't
Tennessee.
bleep for the whole state of Tennessee, the whole state of Alabama, whole state of Alabama, whole state of Alabama.
What do you think, Austin?
So in this game, it's very interesting because Alabama, they're number 1 for the first time in a long time. Congratulations to Alabama fans, including the man above me, Jackson, and Jeffrey, who's kind of sort of in that fan base. Congratulations, guys.
Thanks.
But anywho, this is interesting. Interesting because it is in Tennessee. That Tennessee rarely loses at home. That they what's been pointed out, they've lost at the buzzer to Missouri, and they kind of are going on that downward slope a little bit. And I think that's going to motivate them. They see that Alabama's number 1. They're going to come in with a purpose, fight. I think this game here is going to say a lot of what Tennessee is. And this will show us what Alabama is this year as well. Yes, they're number 1 for now, but what good is it if you can't keep it? But I think this will be a really good game. I'm going to pick Alabama. I just think they've got it rolling. I think they want to prove that this is not a fluke. And I think Bama wins 75-62.
Ooh.
I think 3-pointers are the difference.
I mean, to your point, Austin, I do, you do point out that when you become number 1, then nobody's really seemed to hold on to it this year. So, yes, they just freshly became the number 1 squad in the country, but how long can they really hold on to it? Because it seems hard for anyone to stay number 1 for a long period of time.
Edward said college sports need to ban Rocky Top from playing.
I think that the Vols are a wounded animal, and they played their best when they're playing good teams at home like they did against Texas, and I think they'll bring that. I think it'll be a classic. I think maybe this time they'll be on the winning end of a buzzer beater and win 71-68 over the Tide. But I think it'll be a classic game, and definitely a game I'll be keeping my eye on.
I can't wait for it, man. It should be great.
Ooh. What's your pick, Jeffrey?
I picked Tennessee 79-74. I did it first.
Like I said before, Tennessee's collapse is imminent if they beat Bama.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all set with our next game. The Xavier going up against Marquette.
This was a great game at Xavier, and this time it's at Marquette. hopefully it will be another classic.
Yeah. So Jackson's first. Okay.
Well, I'm going to go with Marquette 68-60 on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this game, I mean, you look at, both teams, Xavier's kind of slipping a bit. I mean, they're still playing really well, but Zach Freemantle's hurt, and that's kind of affected their depth and their ceiling of when they were playing, better basketball a couple weeks ago. And they're a much better home team. Both these teams are much better home teams. Marquette, I mean, they were on a roll, but they, stumbled recently. I think that the home court will be the difference. I'll take Marquette over Xavier 72-67.
Okay. Marquette leads the series 55-27. Marquette's leaders are Cam Jones, averaging 15 points. Oso Igodoro, averaging 6 rebounds. Tyler Kolek, averaging 8 assists. Solely Brown for Xavier averages 16 and 5. And that would be 16 points, 5 assists. And Jack Nunge is averaging 8 rebounds a game. Zach Freemantle is the rebound leader on the team for Xavier, I believe.
Unfortunately, he's out right now.
Actually, I got news. He's supposed to be out till March, but he is expected to play in this game for some reason.
Okay, well, I saw the report he was out till March. So if he's playing in this game, then that report was not telling the truth. Out till March that's 2-3 weeks away.
Marquette's attempting a season split to force a tiebreaker for conference tournament standings for other than head-to-head. Marquette is half a game in front of Creighton and Xavier in the standings. A win gives them control of first place. Xavier's been in a funk lately, still an elite offense, just not maxing out like before, and they have a slightly worse defense. Oso passed D. Wade for 7th most blocks by Marquette Jr. Needs 3 more to get Luke Fisher and Dwayne Johnson, not Dwayne the Rock Johnson, for 5th.
Yeah, the XFL guy.
Cam tied for 6th most threes by a sophomore from Marquette. Need 2 to tie and 3 to pass Darius Johnson Odom and Anthony Peer in tie for 4th. So everything's leaning towards Marquette really needs to win this game. So give me Marquette 87-81.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like Will said above, the last time these two teams played, it was a classic. It was a very good game. I think we're going to see the same thing here. Both teams are playing for a lot. As the man above me mentioned, conference tournament seeding. Joe Lenardi has them anywhere from the 5, 6, 8, anywhere in that side of the bracket. I think this is going to be a marquee game that's going to help the resumes. I think this will be really close. Marquette could shoot the 3. Xavier, they worry me because they turn the ball over a lot sometimes, and that's a little worrisome. But I think at the end of the day, I think since this is in Marquette, the home court advantage is going to be huge here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Marquette wins this game 81-63. I think they make a statement win. I'm going Marquette.
All Edwards comment here. He says The Rock, what a great basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a big Shaka Smart fan, and I'm not a big Sean Miller fan, so I definitely have a rooting interest in this game. I will admit, but obviously Marquette hasn't been playing the best lately, as they did lose by 15 to a UConn team that's been struggling, and they did struggle with Georgetown a bit at the beginning. But looking at Xavier, like losing their best rebounder really hurt, and it showed as they lost at Butler. So I'm going to go with a Marquette 78, Xavier 70 game. I think they'll pull away late.
Oh, there we go.
Home the Eagles will.
Ooh, we're all set with this next one. Northwestern and Indiana. Oh,
Can they
man.
take down both teams from the Hoosier State? Let's see. Great year for the Wildcats already, though.
Oh man, Northwestern was alive and amplified on Sunday. I know everybody talked about Super Bowl 57, but I tell you what, though, Northwestern getting their first ever win against number one in school history. You know, previously before they played Purdue, they were 0-18 against teams ranked number one all time. But then they got win number one against Purdue on Sunday afternoon. Knocked them out from the number one ranking. Thank you, Northwestern. Can they pull the magic again Wednesday night against Indiana? You know, I believe they can. Give me Northwestern 75-70.
Okay, so I mean, this is an interesting game here because of the fact you've got a team, that just beat number one, like you said, for the first time ever. One of two things is going to happen. Either Northwestern's going to take lightning in the bottle and continue to play at a high level like they just did against Purdue. And keep in mind, two things. In that game against Purdue, they were down 8 with 3 to go. Northwestern was. They should have lost, but Purdue collapsed late. And Purdue is kind of in a funk right now. They're not playing as well. The freshman guards are kind of starting to play like freshman guards. Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer. I think the Big Ten grind is starting to get to Purdue a little bit. So they're not playing as well. And again, Northwestern pulled it out at the end. They played like one of the top teams in college basketball in the last 4 minutes of that game. I mean, they couldn't miss, and they were just determined to win once Purdue let up on that game. But again, if Northwestern comes into this game and plays as hard as they did against Purdue, I agree. I do think Northwestern will win. But the other, opposite fact of that is that you have a letdown spot. You just beat number one, and then you have a letdown game. You're not going to play as well. Oh, we beat number one. We can beat Indiana, and we already beat them. Even though technically Indiana lost by 1 on their own floor because they didn't have Race Thompson or Xavier Johnson in that game, and Trace Jackson Davis was still hurt with his back, and things were not really going well for Indiana at that time. But they've since turned around, won 8 of their last 9 games. If Trace Jackson Davis can dominate the paint, which he should in this game because Northwestern doesn't have a center. I mean, Trace Jackson Davis even had a great game against Purdue. Even on Edey. He didn't, dominate Edey, but he still had a great game. Northwestern don't have a center that can stop him. And then all you need is the guard play. If Indiana's guard play, if Trey Galloway, Tamar Bates, and Jalen Hood-Schifino, because still probably no Xavier Johnson, if they can outperform Northwestern's guards, they should win this game. I'm going to take Indiana 72-66 over Northwestern.
All right. Oh boy. So Northwestern did defeat Indiana 84-83 back on January 8th at Assembly Hall in Bloomington. And I believe the Hoosiers will be hungry for revenge this time around. Do note that Mike Woodson's Hoosiers have gone from 1-4 in Big Ten play to 9-5 in roughly 1 month. Led by who? Mostly on the back of my probably all-time favorite Indiana Hoosier basketball player, Tracy Jackson Davis, or TJD for short. And the finally coming out of the blue because he came off an injury, Jalen Hood-Schifino. The duo did earn Big Ten Player and Freshman of the Week on Monday, and Indiana moved up to number 14. Trace Jackson Davis is averaging 20, 11, and 4. In the sense of team breakdown, if you look, Indiana averages about 77 points a game. Northwestern averages about 68. If you look at a team breakdown, it leans Indiana just because of the points and there only being 5 categories. I mean, Indiana check marks for rebounds per game at 34 to 33. Assists, Indiana 16 to 13. Turnovers per game, actually, favors Northwestern at 10 to 12. And points per game allowed, it favors Northwestern at 62 to 67. So it's going to be a battle. And plus, Race Thompson and Logan Duncombe are expected to be out for Indiana. And Boo Buie that produced 26, 4, 3, 3, and 3 in 37 minutes in Sunday's 64 to 58 win. Robbie Beeren registered 0 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 steal in 19 minutes in the Purdue victory. So I do think it'll be close. It'll be tight. But I do think it leans towards Indiana in this one. I'm going to go Indiana 77 to 71.
And I think it's really interesting when you pointed out, that Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson Davis won, the Big Ten honors this week for, Player of the Week and Freshman of the Week. Jackson Davis is the first Big Ten player that's gotten 4 Big Ten Player of the Week awards in a row in history. No one's ever done that before. He's gotten the last 4. He's tied them with Zach Edey, but it still counts, even if you tie. He's the first to get 4 in a row, so I think that's insane.
Definitely.
Oh, I forgot.
So this is a game I've been looking forward to it's been a game I've been looking forward to because Northwestern, boy oh boy, have they come around. They're starting to play some great basketball as we speak. And for the Indiana side of things, they had that great win against Purdue, but that Rutgers game, they kind of struggled. Michigan, it took a comeback to get those 2 wins. I mean, Indiana, we all thought they'd have that letdown after Purdue, kind of what we're thinking with Northwestern, and Indiana just seems like they keep playing from behind and they keep finding ways to win, which the old saying is sometimes it's just best to win ugly. You don't always win pretty. But in this game, it's in Northwestern. I'm with Jackson. I think they're going to catch lightning in a bottle. I think that they realize that they're playing some of their best basketball. Indiana's one of the top dogs now in the Big Ten because they're healthy and they're starting to play good again. And Northwestern's coming in saying, "Hey, we beat number 1 Purdue, but Indiana thinks they're big shots now. Let's take them down a notch." I think Northwestern keeps it rolling. I think Indiana, they've dug themselves too many holes too many times, and third time's the charm is going to get them. And I think it's going to be a Northwestern 84 to 75 victory. Northwestern wins.
It's going to be one of the tougher ones to pick this week. I mean, Northwestern, they're coming off the huge win, but are they really that good? Or was it just a bit of a fluke? Because they've won 3 straight games, but they beat Wisconsin and Ohio State, who are both struggling this year. So this is going to be tough. And the Hoosiers have definitely more talent and have been playing well as of recently too. But they do struggle on the road, and they barely beat a bad Michigan team on the road. I'm going to go with my gut here. I think that the Wildcats are going to pull it off. 78 to 76. But it could go either way for sure.
Well, before we get to our next,
Sorry, Jeffrey.
Cool, man. Don't matter.
before we get to our next game, remember this, audience: if Northwestern beats Indiana tomorrow night, it will be a season sweep of Indiana for Northwestern. Big wins in the bubble for Northwestern right there.
Jeffrey, you better make sure the brooms don't come out.
Oh, man.
Oh man, another big one in the Big 12.
Yes, sir. Another Big
State.
12 battle. It's the Frogs and the Cyclones.
Iowa State's kind of funny though. On the road, they don't do so hot, but when they're at home, you'd think they were the number one team in all of college basketball. But they didn't show that the other night. They're kind of a funny team, but I do think Iowa State will win this one, 65-63.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one, I mean, to your point, Jackson, Iowa State looked unstoppable at home, and then they lose to Oklahoma State at home, even though Oklahoma State's playing much better basketball lately. So that does put, a little bit of concern, on the Iowa State side. Can they take care of business at home in this game? But for me, I mean, the answer is pretty simple. TCU does not have Mike Miles right now, and they are falling apart. I mean, when your best player who averages 19 points per game is hurt, you're not going to be as good. And TCU's trying. They're doing everything they can, but they just cannot win games. They collapsed at the end of the Baylor game at home on Saturday. If Mike Miles is playing, they don't lose that game. But he's not going to be back, so I think that Iowa State is going to win this one 75-64.
So, I got a question for you guys.
Uh-oh, what's the question?
Do you know which Power 5 team has used the most unique starting lineups this season?
Ooh, I'm curious.
The TCU Horned Frogs. Now, it's mostly due to various injuries through the year, but Coach Jamie Dixon's been forced to start a total of 13 unique combinations in his starting lineup. Most disappointing for the Frogs has been the quality of player, often forced to simply watch from the sidelines. TCU's gone in stints without their two leading scorers, Mike Miles and Damian Baugh, and also their leading rebounder in Eddie Lampkin. When fully healthy, TCU may just be as good as any team in the country. Proof of that claim came when the fully equipped Horned Frogs beat Kansas at the Fog and Oklahoma at home by a combined 50 points. Dixon's preferred starting five lasted only a couple of minutes into the team's next contest against Mississippi State before Miles suffered a scary-looking knee injury. Having avoided major injuries, Miles and Lampkin returned to practice in full today for the first time together since that game. TCU fans won't be surprised to hear that the full roster wasn't able to practice, however. Baugh is questionable to play against Iowa State with what team doctors are calling a, quote, lower body ailment. Baugh's potential absence is a large factor in handicapping this game. The Frogs will certainly want as much of their offensive weaponry available as possible against a tough defensive unit on the road in Ames, Iowa. Now, with Iowa State, so until recently, until their recent string of disappointing efforts, Iowa State's been following up its run to the Sweet 16 last year with another year of impressive play under Coach TJ Otzelberger. Offensive struggles have culminated in 2 consecutive losses for the Cyclones entering Wednesday's game. In fact, dating back to Iowa State's game at Missouri on January 28th, the Cyclones dropped 4 of their last 5. It's important to contextualize the losses for Iowa State in order to properly assess the team's state. 3 of the 4 defeats were on the road. 2 of those 3 losses were quad 1 losses, and the one loss that wasn't of the quad 1 variety was a quad 2 loss at Texas Tech, a game the Cyclones led by 23 points at one stage. The most recent loss at home to Oklahoma State was their first loss at Hilton Coliseum all year. The Cyclones' 56-point offensive output was also the second fewest points they have managed in any game this season. Truthfully, their poor offensive production may be a result of a defense in decline. The Iowa State defense allowed an average of only 61 points a game this season, but in their 3 recent road losses, the Cyclones have allowed more than 75 points in each of their 3 opponents. A struggling defense has led to fewer steals and rebounds, which often lead to easy transition buckets. I'd expect the defensive intensity to be there for the Cyclones on Wednesday for a multitude of reasons. The situation for Iowa State calls for a sense of urgency and heightened defensive intensity. A raucous home crowd in Ames always helps the Cyclones defense to make the opponent uncomfortable, and potential absence of ball would necessitate either a ton of minutes for a hobbled Miles or increased minutes for a Frogs reserve guard. So, with the line being what it is, and it's sitting at -4 in favor of Iowa State, I'm going to go with the Cyclones in this one. I'm going to say 73-69 Cyclones.
Yeah, on this game, Mike Miles being missing is a key piece missing for the Horned Frogs. He is their offense sometimes. You know, the first game he missed was against West Virginia. West Virginia, they're up and down, comes and goes. And I picked West Virginia because I thought there might be an upset on the horizon, just for that fact. But no, they were over to overcome that. But, like Jeffrey pointed out, the Baylor game, they lost that at the end, which if he was there, that probably would not have happened, and this would be a completely different story. Iowa State, on the other hand, they're 2 completely different teams. When they're at home, they play some of their best basketball. On the road, not so much. Just look at the Texas Tech game. They had that game in hand, and then the last 8 minutes or so, they started turning the ball over. Couldn't hit a thing. And I think since this is at Iowa State, I think TCU, they're going to miss Mike Miles Jr. big time in this game. I think Iowa State's home crowd's a little too much. I'm going Cyclones 71-63.
I love Edward's comment right here where he says that guy's calling Mike Miles to see if he's playing. That's funny.
Jerron Holmes might be calling the draft scouts, man, because he's having a great year. But yeah, for this one, I just got to keep it a little simple. Iowa State plays really well at home. TCU hasn't been playing well without Mike Miles. So I'm going to go at 83-73 Cyclone victory. They're really tough at Ames. Moving on to the next one, we got Texas A&M taking on Arkansas. Texas A&M having a surprisingly good year. Arkansas surprisingly a little disappointing.
Well, Texas A&M, I'll tell you what, though, second place in SEC has got to account for something. And I think they're going to show that Wednesday night, tomorrow night against Arkansas with a 73-66 victory.
So where's this game at?
It's at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Okay. I see it now. Yeah, because Arkansas, he was on the right, so I was getting confused. I saw in the Discord that it was at A&M, and I see him on the right, so I wasn't sure. All right, so it's at Texas A&M.
Yep, correct.
That does complicate things because of the fact, A&M, like most teams, has been playing better at home. They've been playing better as of late, and they look like a tournament team. Arkansas has been playing better too. They're getting healthier. They got a big win at Kentucky, and I know that's not, what it normally is, I guess, because Kentucky's not, that great this year. But they look really dominant in that game. I think Arkansas will win again. I'll take them 70-68.
You like all Arkansas, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Old Eric Musselman.
So, all right. So Texas A&M is coming into its final stretch of the regular season with just 6 games remaining in SEC play at 18-7 and 10-2 in the SEC, and with some of their toughest matchups left on the docket. A visit from the Arkansas Razorbacks coming in at 17-8 and 6-6 in the SEC, just the first obstacle in their way to not only earning an NCAA tournament bid, but becoming one of the more feared opponents heading into March. On Wednesday night, Arkansas is coming into Reed Arena after a disappointing home loss to the surging Bulldogs of Mississippi State while sitting in the middle of the SEC at 6-6, most likely needing to finish at 500 or better in order to safely secure a spot in the tournament. But as we've seen in the past couple of weeks in conference play, no one is safe. Despite their
Alabama.
Despite their underwhelming performance against the Bulldogs, the Razorbacks have won 3 of the last 5, yes, technically, unless you're Alabama, including an 88-73 win against Kentucky at Rupp Arena on February 7th. Holy cow, somebody actually beat Kentucky for once. The scoring trio consisting of junior guard Ricky Council, averaging 17 points a game, freshman guard Anthony Black, averaging 13 points a game, and junior guard Devontae Davis, averaging 11 points a game, is still as intimidating as ever to game plan for. Buzz Williams knows all too well after all 3 recorded double digits scoring efforts in their first meeting. As a team, Arkansas is averaging 75 points a game, 36 rebounds, 70% from the free throw line, an impressive 48% from the field, but only 30% from three-point range. Worse than the Aggies, 33% from deep in comparison. A&M is averaging 75 points a game, 37 rebounds, 75% from the free throw line, and shooting 45% from the field, and a slightly better 33% from deep. Defending the perimeter is a must for the Aggies if they want to avoid a repeat of last month's loss. One of the few areas the team has struggled with in SEC play, even with their 10 wins. Offensively, Wade Taylor IV has been predominant playmaker as of late, but I believe that this will be another inside game with an emphasis on rebounding and scoring at the rim, whether it's a healthy mixture of Julius Marble and Henry Coleman in the low post or Tracy Radford slashing to the basket to set up outside shooting looks. The Aggies are in the midst of a 3-game win streak after handily defeating LSU by a mere 12 points, 74-62 on Saturday night, and do possess home court advantage this time around while looking for revenge against the team that embarrassed them defensively for much of their January 31st meeting. However, knowing that the Razorbacks will be in full desperation mode to earn what would amount to a quad 1 victory for their tournament resume gives this the feeling of a neutral court showdown against 2 hungry programs. I'm going to lean towards A&M in this one. So I'm going to go Texas A&M 72, Arkansas 64. I think it'll be close, but the perimeter game is what's going to be the key.
They go Buzz Lightyear Williams to the rescue.
But anywho, this will be a fun game, I believe. Arkansas, they're a defensive team. They've always been that kind of team that plays some defense. A&M, they could shoot. They can shoot the 3. They're a good transition team. But can they defend the perimeter like Arkansas can? I don't think so. And I think Arkansas, they're going to force A&M into some pressure shots, and it's going to lead to some fast break layups, probably some transition 3s. I think the Hogs are just going to swarm the Aggies. They realize this is March. We're getting close to March, and this is when Arkansas begins to kick it in and they begin their run. And I think Arkansas wins this game off of turnovers. I think they win it 73-54. I think they run them over. Pig suey.
Oh man. Do you guys remember when Tyrese Radford for A&M was on that Virginia Tech Sweet 16 team? Man, that's crazy how he just hopped over with Buzz Williams and is still playing with the Aggies. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Arkansas is really hungry and they're playing better. But I feel like this is a rivalry game. They lost the first one pretty bad. They're going to want revenge. The Aggies will. So I'm going to go 80-74 Aggies to win.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. We got another test for Purdue in this one. See if they can keep bouncing back from that loss in Assembly Hall.
I guess I'll go. This game, I mean, go ahead, Jackson.
Sorry. I'm going to go with Purdue with a 75-64 victory.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this game right here, I mean, this is one of those situations where it's like the opposite of the Northwestern, where a situation where they either, have lightning in a bottle and continue to play well, or they have a letdown game. For Purdue, it's one of those situations where you lose a game. Are you going to let it compound and do another loss, or are you going to bounce back and start playing like you were before? The problem for Purdue is that as a whole, they just haven't been playing as well last couple games. I mean, you look at even the Iowa game that they won, they gave up 73 to Iowa. And Indiana was the first team to score 70 on them. And then Iowa scored 70 on them as well, even though Purdue won. And then they lost at Northwestern. So just overall on both sides of the ball are not playing as well as they were before. They just seem to be kind of finally the Big Ten grind's catching up with them a little bit. I think that the freshman guards are the key. Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith were, they look like seniors out there 3 weeks ago. But right now, they don't look like juniors and seniors anymore. They do look like freshman guards. They're making more mistakes. They're not hitting shots like they were. Zach Edey's still Zach Edey, but the problem for Purdue is if it's just Zach Edey, just like for Indiana in the past, it's just been Trace Jackson Davis. You need that second and third option, and Purdue had that until recently, and they're not getting the consistent production from the other players right now. Maryland, they're playing really well at home this year, and the Xfinity Center is probably going to be the best crowd that Maryland's had in 5 years for this game. And you look at the fact that they haven't lost at home in Big Ten play. They've only lost at home to UCLA early in the year when they were not playing very well, and they're playing much better now. I actually think Maryland beats Purdue 69-64.
Ooh, going with the upset. All right.
Huh. So, let's see. All right. So, the number one team in the Big Ten, Purdue, will be going against Maryland this coming Thursday in College Park. Can the Boilermakers go 2-0 straight up this season versus Maryland, or will the Terrapins trip up Purdue this time around? Well, coming in at 23-3, Purdue is arguably the best team in the nation right now. It's ranked number one by the AP. So at the very least, the Boilers are among the group of elites in college basketball this season. That being said, the Boilers have lost 2 of their last 3 games. They got stunned on Sunday, as we've discussed a little bit, by Northwestern by 6 and a road loss in Evanston. Purdue made 5 of its first 9 threes in the Northwestern game before going cold from deep, missing all of their final 13 attempts from downtown. Not always going to be that bad for Purdue, though. This is a team that went to Evanston ranked 7th in Division I basketball with 120 points per 100 possessions, adjusted, and second in Big Ten play with 54% efficiency field goal percentage. The under is 6-4 in Purdue's last 10 games as the road team. Maryland comes in at 17-8. Much better than the Boilermakers. The Terps are coming off of a 74-68 win in College Park last Saturday against the roaring Penn State female Nittany Lions, and are also 5-1 straight up in the last 6 outings. That stretch includes wins against the likes of the Wisconsin Badgers, and let's roll a tear for a second because that also includes a win over our dearly beloved Jeffries Indiana Hoosiers. Maryland is a great defensive team. It's the 21st in the nation with just 63 points allowed per game and 34th with opponent shooting just over 47 efficiency field goal percentage. Although they lost to Purdue in the first meeting of these teams this season, 58-55, which tells me it'll still be close, the Terrapins made life hard for the Boilermakers, who shot just 39% field goal percentage and committed 15 turnovers in that contest. Maryland's covered the spread in 7 of the last 10 meetings versus the Boilermakers, dating back all the way to 2017. So it's about time for Purdue to wake up and make a statement game. This is a perfect opportunity for the Boilermakers to do it against a good Terps team on the road. It could be a good performance, but I do not think Purdue can get it done. I think they're stuck in a slump. I think Maryland still wins the game and shocks Purdue with a dagger in the heart again. Give me Maryland in a sort of close one, starting to pull away in the end, 61-55 Maryland.
Ooh, Maryland for the upset from Buckeye Mike. There we go.
Yeah. Maryland has played really good at home this year. To Jeffrey's point, this will probably be their best crowd in a long time, because they've been bad quite a long time. And I'm glad they're enjoying their season they're on, because you don't know how many of these you'll get or how many you will get. Just look at Louisville and Indiana, for example. We were in slumps for so long we didn't get to enjoy them as fans, me and Jeffrey. I'm glad Maryland gets to enjoy this somewhat, that they're back again, hopefully. But yeah, in this game, it's going to be, up to Zach Edey. If he does what he continues to do, he can probably win this game by himself if he wanted to. But like Jeffrey said, it's going to come down to the guard play. Can they act like seniors and juniors like they did early in the year, or are they just going to be the freshmen and sophomores like they are? I think this is a close game, but I think Purdue wins. I know they're reeling, but I think Purdue, they still want to be a 1 seed in the tournament. I think Zach Edey goes for anywhere from 25, 30, maybe even has 15 rebounds on top of it, and maybe throwing a couple dimes. I'm going Purdue 88-61.
It's crazy how bad Maryland is at home and how good they are on the road. Like, they only lost to UCLA at home, but on the road, they've only beaten Minnesota and Austin's beloved Louisville Cardinals. So it's so crazy how different the splits are. But I think Maryland will keep it going at home. I mean, UCLA is a great team. I mean, they weren't playing the best then as well, and they've rolled through everyone else in the Big Ten at home, and I think they're going to do it against Purdue too. I think they'll win it 80-78 Terps. Mm-hmm. Next one, we got a clash in the pack, Utah and Arizona.
So, yeah, you've got it's Jackson. I forgot. Go ahead, Jackson. Go ahead.
I'm going to go Arizona 75-61.
All right. So you got Utah. They beat Arizona already at home. And Arizona is a weird team because of the fact they have had some dud games in the Pac-12 this year. They lost to Washington State at home. They lost at Oregon. They lost at Stanford, and they lost at Utah. Now, granted, Oregon's playing better, which about 2 weeks ago when I picked Oregon to win at Arizona State, you guys were like, man, Oregon's horrible. They're coming around, though. I know they just lost to UCLA, but to Will's point, UCLA clearly is playing like the best team in the Pac-12 right now. And Dana Altman always seems to get the Ducks playing better toward the end of the season. But Arizona, it's about consistency. I think talent-wise, I think they might be the most talented team in the Pac-12, or they have the highest upside, but they do choke in games. And to be fair, they did lose 3 of those games on the road. The only one they lost at home that they shouldn't have lost was Washington State. I could definitely see Utah winning this game, but I will try to give Arizona the benefit of the doubt. I'll take Arizona 70-67.
Sorry. So, I mean this in a full jokingly manner, but I don't really know how many eyes are going to be on this game just because it's going to be on Pac-12 Network.
Boo.
Yeah.
I plan on watching it.
Good.
Same. So, when the Wildcats beat the Bruins on February 3rd, they were number 16 in the AP Top 25. And they won by a score of 71-66. It was a signature win of the year by far at that time. When facing quad one opponents, Arizona is 3-5, so 0.375%, which is tied for the 39th most victories. Against quad two opponents, Arizona is 6-1 with 0.857 percentage, which is tied for 7th most victories. The Wildcats have tied for the 9th most quad 3 victories in the nation with 7. Arizona's best wins are 75-54 over Baylor on December 18th, 81-75 on the road over USC on February 5th, 79-71 at home over Oregon on January 8th, 72-69 at home over Oregon State on January 6th, and 61-54 at home over Washington on January 27th. Performance insights for Arizona. Wildcats have outscored opponents by 12 points per game, scoring 76 points per game, which ranks 35th in college basketball, while giving up 64 per contest, which ranks 177 in college basketball, and have a plus 294 scoring differential overall. Offensively, Arizona is posting 70.8 points per game this season in conference tilts to compare to its overall 76 points per game is 5.2 points per game higher. Wildcats put up 77.5 points per game while playing at home compared to 73.7 per game away from home, a difference of 3.8 points per contest. At home, Arizona is ceding 3.6 fewer points per game, 63.2. Then in away games, 66.8. The Wildcats have been racking up 71.5 points per contest in their last 10 times on the court, an average that's a little lower than the 76 they've scored over the course of the campaign of the season. And it's very, very bad look for Arizona. Utah overall has a better look on offense and on defense. I am actually going to go with Utah to pull off the win here. I'm going to say Utah 71-68.
Oh, man, that's pretty cool. Going with the upset. Yeah, Texas A&M Arkansas is pretty awesome. And Indiana and Northwestern.
I think he's more talking about he talked about betting stuff last time, so he's probably talking about that.
Well, you want to go for one? Go for.
We're obviously not professionals, but I just picked Tennessee over Bama.
So I have a disclosure to make.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't bet any penny on anything. I was trying to get back in some good graces when I said that.
I like moneyline Northwestern over Indiana. I know Jeffrey won't like that, but I think there's some. But I think it's a good.
Hey man, Trace Jackson Davis is just gonna have to go out there and act like Zach Edey, man. He can do it.
Yeah. And also,
Louisville plays Virginia tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You could take that one too, whatever the line is. If it's 20,
It's
take
UVA
it.
minus 17.
Louisville only lost to Miami by like 7 or 8. I mean, that was an improvement. Like Edwards said earlier, they didn't turn the ball over so much. They might have actually won.
Yeah, L. Ellis had a heck of a game. But that's not the task at hand. We're getting off track. We don't need to talk about Bird with teeth right now. Love him to death, but that's not the topic. Anywho,
hey, we're just trying to give Bird with teeth some love, man. You're back.
Love, man. Love.
Anywho, back to teams that matter at the moment. Oh Lord. Anywho, we done gone off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right.
So Utah, Arizona. This is going to be a good game. You know, it is on the Pac-12 network, which I will be watching it because I have family of Utah fans. But, you know, this game, the first time was really good. And, you know, not a lot of people expected a lot from Utah this year because Utah ain't really a basketball school. They've been more of the football school. And Arizona, they're the opposite. They're the basketball school. They're supposed to kill Utah. No, let me rephrase that. Not kill, run them over. The nicer way to put it. But Utah actually beat them this year. Because Utah –
well, the non-getting blocked way to put it.
Clothesline.
Yes, clothesline. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. But Utah, they come around in basketball. Like Buckeye Mike said, their offense and defense has improved tremendously. And from what I've seen of Utah basketball, I think if they can get some recruit classes and they're in the Pac-12, you know, USC and UCLA are leaving. Who knows? Maybe in a couple years they have a full takeover. Basketball, football, all sports Utah takes over. But in this game, I think since it's in Arizona, I think Arizona at home, they're just a different team. I want Utah to win, but I'm going to take Arizona 71-70. They win at the buzzer.
Good pick. Good pick. On word to Will's pick.
Yeah, I'm also going to go Arizona. I mean, they should win, but even though Utah has been playing well, I'll go 78-70 Cats.
Ooh.
And onward to the assembly rivalry, I like to call it, because they're both, I believe they're both called assembly halls. Illinois
yeah, but
and
there's only one true assembly hall now.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's in Champaign.
No.
Now, Will,
our non-alcoholic assembly hall friends, our non-alcoholic assembly hall
I'm
friends.
kidding.
It's the true assembly hall. Champaign, you're not assembly hall. Love you, Illinois, but you're not assembly hall, man.
So can the Hoosiers sweep the Illini? Let's see what Jackson has to say.
I'm going to go with Trace Jackson Davis, Indiana Hoosiers, for a 71-62 rebound on Saturday against the Illinois Fighting Illini.
You look at this game, Illinois, they have been up and down. I mean, and all around, to be honest. I mean, they can't figure out whether they're good or not. I mean, at times, Illinois looks like a team that's potentially, if Purdue didn't exist, the best team in the Big Ten. But then Illinois just tanks. Like they lost to Penn State tonight, even though Jalen Pickett had a monster game of 41 points, the most points for any Nittany Lions player since 1961. But still, Illinois just cannot figure out whether they're good or not. Now, last year, Illinois did go on the road and won at Indiana. But this is a different Indiana team, as Mike Woodson and Trace Jackson Davis have both pointed out several times. This is a different team. It's going to be a sold-out crowd at Assembly Hall. And I could see an upset here because Illinois, when they play really well, are capable of pulling this off. And Indiana did win at their place. So, there's a chance they could come in and, and pull off an upset in their own right. But I'm going to go with Indiana to beat Illinois 77-74.
Just as a total joke, do we really need to ask you for a score and who's going to win for an Indiana game?
Why?
Complete joke, but you know what I mean.
I mean, well, to be honest, remember I was picking against them every game, and then they lost against Maryland because I picked Maryland. I was doing the reverse psychology thing, and now I'm just picking them every time until they lose. So, and then I'm going to probably reverse it. It's like back and forth here.
Because they're healthy now. As previous, Jeffrey, they weren't healthy.
Well, I mean, and to your point and my point, when I was the savior for Indiana to begin with, the man on screen wearing the Indiana jersey that you can hardly tell it's Indiana, but if you watch enough, you know it's him, is the reason Indiana is actually good.
Yes.
He has defined Indiana basketball, and he has made Indiana basketball relevant again. I think we can agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at this game itself, you got Illinois, which will try to continue their climb in the Big Ten standings, hosting Indiana on Thursday. Illinois rattled off 4 consecutive wins, including a 78-60 smash throttling at Minnesota on Monday. Indiana snapped a 3-game losing skid with a 63-45 beat down over then number 18 Wisconsin on Saturday. Oh shoot, I actually seeing that now. I hope this is the right one. No, it's not. Never mind. I see my mistake now. Basically, this one's easy for me anyway. I just love the man on screen. I love Jalen Hood-Schifino. Those are your 2 big guys from Indiana. I do realize I looked like a complete idiot a minute ago.
Hey, I didn't mind reliving that Wisconsin win. Don't get me wrong. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, when I noticed it said Wisconsin thrashing, I'm like, oh, whoops, wrong thing. But anyway, between the 2 main stars on Indiana, mainly carrying most of Indiana's production like they did in one of the most recent games when the man on screen had 28 and 10 the other night and Hood-Schifino had 21. That being most of the production, I still think with the supporting cast that Indiana has, I don't think Illinois can stop Indiana from winning the game. It's just too much strength and power on Indiana's side. As far as I know personally, Illinois is basically built with a bunch of who are you people. There's not really anyone that really stands out that I'm aware of. But there could be. You're the all-knowing college basketball dude, so
Matthew Mayer, who's on screen, the transfer from Baylor, he's had big games, but he's inconsistent. Terrence Shannon, the transfer from Texas Tech, he has good games, but he's inconsistent. That's the issue. They have players.
They've underachieved. Their players haven't played up to snuff. They got a lot of hype players before the year, and they haven't been that good.
Scott Clark left. Dane Danger, he's been transferred from Baylor. He's been decent, but again, inconsistencies.
So basically, there are the names there for Illinois. They're just inconsistent, and the players don't show up.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not as reliable as Indiana, in my opinion, even with the big stars being the 2. So I'm just going to go Indiana 77-64. 69. Haha, 69.
And to your point, real quick, I know we got to, speed it up, but with Trace Jackson Davis, I think what's going to be more symbolic of his, basically in the future with Indiana, because, I mean, he could be gone after this year. It's not just what he did for Indiana as a player, but potentially what he could have possibly have done for the program in the future, because, like you said, Indiana is relevant again. And there is a good chance, there's a lot of really good players that are considering Indiana now in the high school ranks, and you could possibly get some good portal players. And this would have never happened without Trace Jackson Davis and Mike Woodson. So, I mean, to me, that's the bigger thing, is that if Indiana's good consistently from now on in the future, you got him to thank, because he turned the program around.
Must be nice, Jeffrey, over there in Indiana land. I digress over here in Cardinal land. Anywho, back to the point at hand. So Illinois, Indiana, in Assembly Hall, the famous arena, the one everyone comes and pays and sees. This is going to be a good game. Illinois, they've been a team, a lot of people have picked in years past to win the Natty, Final Fours, Elite Eights, because they had all that talent, but they ended up squandering it, and that's their fault. They had their shots, and now I had Indiana losing to Northwestern. I think now in this game, I think they come back home. I think they get it together, and Illinois, they're holding on with all they got. I just don't think they have enough with Indiana. I think when Indiana plays at home in front of that rocking crowd, there's something different about that arena. Just ask Kentucky in 2011 what happens when you go there. It's just different. And I think for that reason, and Trace Jackson Davis arguably being the player of the year in college basketball, I think Indiana beats Illinois 81-66. Hoosiers win.
I think it'll get ugly. I'm going to Hoosiers 83, Illini 60. I think the Hoosiers will pile on. And next up, we got the rematch from one of the bigger upsets, this time in Lexington, between Kentucky and Tennessee.
Oh, I think Kentucky is going to beat Tennessee in tight fashion with a 68-67 victory.
Yeah, you can almost, chalk this one up as Kentucky's last stand here. They got to win this game. If you want to be a tournament team, you have to win this game, because you don't have any quality wins at all, except the win at Tennessee. That's it. Like, you look at their resume, and that is it. They beat Michigan, but Michigan hasn't been very good. So that's literally their entire resume of quality wins. And, basing off of that, I picked Tennessee to beat Bama, then that's going to boost Tennessee back up. And potentially it could be a letdown game here. And it's on the road. Tennessee has struggled on the road for the most part. Kentucky, though, has not been as good at Rupp as they've been in the past. They've lost games. I mean,
they lost to South Carolina, man.
South Carolina beat them. Arkansas beat them. Kansas beat them. I mean, they're penetrable at home. Like, this is not like Indiana or, even Duke, for the most part, like not losing at home, for the most part. Even Duke doesn't really lose at home much, even this season. It's like, I just think that overall, the home crowd has to be the difference, and you got to win the home games if you're going to be a tournament team. Like in the Power Five, especially when you're in the SEC and the Big Ten, if you win all your home games in conference, you usually make the tournament, because that's 10 games. If you're in a 20, conference, game, whatever, like the Big Ten, they play 20 games. If you win your 10 home games, usually you get it. I think maybe the SEC still plays 18, so 9 and then 1 road game. So Kentucky has that road game, but the problem is they've lost the home games. So they have to get this game. It is imperative that they win this game. And I picked Kentucky to beat Kansas, and they lost. I did pick Arkansas to beat Kentucky, and Arkansas did win. I'm riding the Hogs right now, but I don't trust Tennessee, so I will take Kentucky 69-65, but they have to win this game if they want to make the tournament.
For sure.
To your point, Jeffrey, we've done this once before. This is kind of a – I don't mean this in a negative way, but for your thinking perspective, this is a bad game to pick right now just because we don't know the outcome of Tennessee-Alabama. Mm-hmm. Because the pick for this game really lays on Alabama-Tennessee. Mm-hmm. To really have an idea of who will win this game. Not a bad game to pick. I'm just saying, again, not trying to be negative about it. But I say it because of my next words. Let's say if Tennessee wins against Alabama, mm-hmm. you now have both teams who are fighting for their lives still. Tennessee has a leg up because they beat Alabama, if they do, which makes it an even dog versus dog style of match, not really having an edge of it meaning more for one or the other.
It just means more, though, it's the SEC.
Oh, yeah. That league is God itself almighty. And
that's football, guys.
The only thing that sports people care about. I think as much as I want to go Tennessee, I think Tennessee could actually, if they win, Tennessee could fall into the trap of coming in off way too big of a high after beating the number one team. So if Tennessee wins versus Alabama, I'm going to go Kentucky 70-64. If Tennessee loses, the game means a little less, but I think Kentucky will still show up because I think it all lays again on Tennessee, because if they lose, Tennessee could still come in riding a low point of, depending on if it's a blowout or not, we almost had them, could have beat them, and then they just don't show up because they're in the rut.
Yeah. For this game, I don't like Kentucky. I'll say it right here, right now. I don't like Kentucky. I don't like anything about them. They're our in-state rival. I don't want to see them in the tournament. The only time I ever want to see them in the tournament is when we play them and then we could beat them. But that's not going to happen. But in this game, I'll try to keep my bias aside. But in this game here, it all depends on Alabama, like the two above me said. If they beat Alabama, then we could see Kentucky. They're already going to have all their chips in the middle of the table. This is, like Jeffrey said, almost the last stand time. A lot of teams are getting to that point now. Before we hit March, it's the last stand. It's everything you got, leave it all out there. There is no tomorrow. And if Tennessee loses, then Tennessee could come in moping and maybe they could take their frustrations out on Kentucky. Maybe it's wishful thinking. But since this is in Tennessee, I'm going to pick the Vols. They play better at home. I'm going to pick the Vols 63-57.
I'm gonna lean Vols to pull it out to avoid the sweep. 77-60.
I will say, if Tennessee does lose, to Alabama and then lose to Kentucky, they're still only on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, you could basically at that point count them out of the tournament for sure. Maybe in an IT bid, but
oh, you talking about Tennessee?
Yeah.
No, they're gonna make tournament.
No, yeah, they're ranked.
They're
gonna make tournament.
Like a top 4 seed right now. Mm-hmm. They're number 10 in the country. Yeah, they're good. They're good. Kentucky's the one that's like on ice. Tennessee's fine. I mean, what's their record right now? I mean, they're like 19-6, 18-19-6. So they'd have to lose every game if they were even to potentially miss a tournament.
Well, thank you. Now I don't feel so stupid for making that last comment because you didn't even know offhand.
I think
They're 19-6.
19-6. I was, yeah.
Well, this is a big one in the Big 12 for sure. The Jayhawks and the Bears.
Is that Baylor? You can't even tell.
Yeah, he's dunking it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. You should have
Is that
maybe got a better angle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this game's at Kansas, right?
Let's see. I thought it was at Baylor.
Who's it at? I'm getting confused with all the pictures are sometimes not matching up with where they're.
If you go by the way he's been doing the pictures, Baylor's at home because he's been putting the home team on the right. So he's basically been doing it the way you would read it off of like ESPN graphic.
It's at Kansas.
Oh, Will.
That's what I'm saying.
I was rushing.
They already played, and they lost that.
Yeah,
Baylor.
my mistake.
Lost at Baylor. But yeah. So I just want to get that right. So we got a date at Fog Allen. So yeah. I mean, Kansas has been interesting. Like at home, they haven't really been dominant at times. Where like they've barely won, and obviously TCU destroyed them. But TCU's not the same anymore at this point. But Kansas is playing better lately. I mean, they kind of had their brief skid like me and Austin were talking about, and people were like, oh, is Kansas falling off the edge of the earth? No, they had a little skid, and now they're okay. They're playing a lot better. And they beat Texas on Big Monday. So I think they're doing just fine. I think that Baylor is rock solid. They've been playing so much better lately. I mean, they're like 19-6 right now as well, just like Tennessee, and Baylor was 10-5 at one point. So they've won 9 of their last 10 games. But I'm going to go with Kansas because it's at home and they're playing really well right now. 80-79. I think this will be close.
Oh, I'm going to go with a Baylor victory, 75-71 on the road. Buckeye Mike, your pick.
I think Kansas has a lot to prove. And, they were coming out of a first half scare that Jackson and I were going back and forth on last weekend when they played Oklahoma, because Oklahoma looked like at the time through the first half they were going to take them down to the wire. Then they came out of half, and Kansas was just like, nope, we're going to Kansas City versus Philadelphia you.
Yeah, that was so funny. I saw y'all's comments where it was like, oh, man, it looks like Oklahoma might get an upset. And then Kansas clotheslined them in the second half. It was sad for the Sooners. But the Sooners, beat K-State. So, everything's good. 13-13. Everything's all right.
I mean, I think Baylor is on another level compared to Oklahoma. So I think Baylor can definitely make it close. It is at Kansas, like we determined and looked silly determining on live.
Yeah, I'd pull it up. I couldn't remember. And then I remembered after the fact that I remembered.
Home court advantage at Kansas is usually really important and favors Kansas a lot of the times. So I'm going to go Kansas 74, Baylor 73.
Bill Self's got like an 89% win percentage at home. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
Something like crazy like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this right here's got impact on the Big 12 tournament seeding because they're both 9-4 in Big 12 play as we speak today. And Kansas, a lot of people thought Kansas ran this, but they don't anymore. Baylor's here now, and the Big 12's better as a whole. But in this game, it is in Allen Fieldhouse. It is in the fog. This is one of the toughest places to play. Not many teams can go in there and say they've beaten Kansas. Not many. There's a few, but very rarely do many make it out of there. And I think Baylor, they're a really good defensive team. They're finally making their shots and playing some good defense, great defense. But I just think Kansas has got too much. And that home crowd, I think it's going to be too much. I'm going Kansas 79-74. I'm going Jayhawks.
Should I go with the bare necessities? That is the question. Should I go with the bare necessities? Well, Kansas usually does well at home, but I feel like a lot of the time they've been playing teams close at home. And they also had that stinker against TCU. That was crazy. No one expected to get that game to go like
Miles,
that.
Man.
Mike Miles, he's a difference maker and he's hurt now. I'm gonna go with the Bears, 77-71.
There you go.
In a close one.
I mean, like I know we're picking games, but real quick, like with TCU, if Mike Miles returns and then they light it up again, I mean, it's one of those situations where you wish there was an exception to the seeding. You know, where like if TCU like ends up being like a 7 or 8 seed in the tournament because they lost all these games, but with Mike Miles and the way they were playing before, they were a top 3 or 4 seed. And that's what's frustrating. Like, they're not going to be that now, even if he returns and they're playing much better again. But the way they were playing before, they should be a top 3 or 4 seed. It's frustrating. That should be like the only time that you wish that a team was seeded higher. And obviously, that's only if Mike Miles is back, because that's when they're a 3 or 4 seed.
Do we think that this is starting to trend to where maybe we don't get a national champion for the 3rd straight year out of the Big 12?
Oh, it's definitely possible, man. I mean, the Big 12, I mean, they have, theoretically on paper, 5 teams that you could at least see a shot of them winning the whole thing. I mean, obviously, the top teams is more likely Kansas and Baylor or Texas if they could actually play in the tournament.
That'll be interesting. Can they play or will they choke again in the first 2 rounds?
Yes. That's going to be really interesting to see. But, I mean, yeah, I can definitely see the Big 12 winning another one because
3rd straight national title to be exact.
And if Kansas wins, they'd be the first team to go back-to-back since – who did do it last?
Florida.
That is interesting.
Florida.
06-07 with Al
Billy
Horford.
Donovan.
It's been a while.
Al Horford, Joe Kim Noah, who was Joe. Billy Donovan at coach.
Yep. Coach Donovan.
They knocked off the first time the Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook led UCLA Bruins, and then the most dominant Ohio State team in a long time.
Yeah, Greg Oden,
Mike Conley.
Oden, man. I was hyped for him in the NBA, but it didn't work out.
It's like Roy Hibbert, man. I mean, Roy Hibbert should have dominated the NBA. Greg Oden should have dominated. It just didn't happen.
Oh, yeah. These days,
injuries.
Yeah.
These days, Coach Donovan has the Chicago Bulls fighting for that 10th playoff spot in the Eastern Conference.
With my Wizards.
Oh, there you go.
Shouldn't have got rid of Thomas Bryant, man. Everybody's regretting getting rid of Thomas Bryant, the Wizards and the Lakers.
Yeah, he was good for the Lakers, man.
It's like, oh, I'm calling for the ball, and LeBron gets the record, and it's like, let's get rid of him.
All right. So this game, I know for certain, is in Raleigh. NC State UNC rematch. And the first game, unfortunately, got marred by the Terquavians.
And let's just say they're not very good.
Yeah. Let's hope Terquavian Smith doesn't get injured again, and let's hope that each team can finish healthy. Because that
most definitely, we want everyone to be healthy for sure.
This game kind of seems like North Carolina's last stand a bit, so it's a big game for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, it's like the Kentucky-Tennessee thing, but this time Carolina's on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I gotta go with North Carolina State, and it's a 69-65 victory.
That's a good one, Mike. I will say that I mean, I want to pick Tar Heels here. I mean, they need a win. I mean, if you're gonna be a preseason number 1 team, you got to at least make the tournament. Like biasness aside, you can't miss the tournament here. I mean, that's just a horrible look. But things are trending in that direction. I mean, I think they're in a little bit better shape than Kentucky right now because they don't have the quad 4 loss to South Carolina. I mean, Kentucky has that win over Tennessee, and North Carolina doesn't really have that marquee win, but they don't have the bad loss either. But Carolina needs this game, and they were able to beat NC State at home. But I will take the Wolfpack 75-70. I think that NC State's been really good at home. Terquavian Smith is a fantastic player. And Jarkel Joyner and DJ Burns have been great as well. They just have a much better team than they do in the past. And North Carolina is playing very uninspiring basketball. So if Carolina is going to get more shots to make the tournament, it's going to have to be after this game.
So I have a love-hate relationship with the state of North Carolina. And I have for years because I go back and forth with the two big, well-known, big-name teams in the state when it comes to college basketball. I seem to have a stretch when I like North Carolina, and it was under Roy Williams. And then I had a couple of stretches with Duke and Flippy Flop. For a while I liked Duke and Coach K and J.J. Redick. Oh, my God, J.J. Redick was a freaking monster, man. Dagger threes all the time from the corner and everything. Lights out shooter. The closest thing to Ray Allen and Steph Curry back then. And Steph Curry wasn't even a thought of yet. Anyway. See, Austin, we all get off topic. Anyway, enough of the struggle bus. I love the underdog stories and the positions that they're in. Because, it just means more for an underdog, not a conference, for a team every night in every game because they're an underdog. To your point above me, you great awesomeness above me, North Carolina, you're welcome. North Carolina has been playing wishy-washy basketball. NC State has been steady with consistency, whereas it's more not North Carolina playing like that. I think North Carolina wants to come out, get an important quad 1 or quad 2 win wherever NC State lies in that, and just punch little brother in the mouth. So I'm going to say North Carolina hits a dagger 3 from the corner and upsets NC State 79-78.
I can see it.
Yeah. Jeffrey, you can relate to me on this one. This is not the North Carolina of old because when me and Jeffrey were kids, North Carolina was like the team, and when it gets close to March and February, they look like the best team in basketball a lot of times. This isn't the same one anymore. This is far from it. Same with Duke. I know Duke's not in this conversation at the moment, but they were like that. In this time of year, Coach K, Roy Williams had North Carolina and Duke playing their best basketball. This is not them anymore. And NC State, they could shoot the 3 really well. But, to Jeffrey's point and Buckeye Mike's point, this is the last stand. And who would ever thought we'd be talking about North Carolina on the last stand? Normally they would have had their tournament ticket punched and ready to go. It'd just be where are they being seated. I think this is a got-to-have-it game both ways because NC State's coming off the bad loss. North Carolina has got to have it more. And I think desperate teams do desperate things. I think we see maybe a 30-point game out of Caleb Love or a 25 30-point game out of Baycott. I'm going North Carolina because I think that they realize they need this and they're in danger of missing the tournament. I'm going North Carolina 86-80.
I mean, sorry, Will, before you go real quick, but I mean, it is nothing wrong with the slide. Slide looks great, looks awesome, good job. The North Carolina guy, if you just look at the guy on screen, he looks deflated. He looks like, oh my God.
I kind of did to fit the theme that the season
I know. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, the way we've been talking about North Carolina, starting with Mr. Awesome above me, because y'all are awesome, but I have to differentiate everyone. So Mr. Awesome greatness above me. North Carolina is deflated, and they're just not, to his point and our points, the North Carolina of old, the North Carolina of, Tyler Hansbrough and all the greats that played.
One of my first college basketball memories is him with a mask against Duke. He was wearing that mask.
Yeah, that was one of my first memories as well. I was a little kid. I was like 4. I mean, watching that, but I remember it barely. But I mean, the thing about Carolina, real quick, I know we got to go, but like the thing about North Carolina this season is that it literally all it's coming down to is Caleb Love making shots like he did last year when they got rolling. Because think about it, he wasn't making shots all season last year. They were on the bubble, and then when they played Duke at Duke in Coach K's final game, he turned it up, and then they just rolled through the tournament. And he was on fire. Brady Manick last year was key. He was hitting shots. Who's not hitting shots? Pete Nance has not replaced him well. Pete Nance is not Brady Manick. So that's a problem. And then you have Baycott, still Baycott for the most part. He's playing pretty well. RJ Davis, he's been about the same, maybe a little worse, about the same. Leaky Black's actually improved, but they have no bench. So it's essentially Caleb Love has to make shots like he did last year at the end of the season. And Pete Nance needs to be more like Brady Manick. And if Carolina could get that, they could be really good still, but they're not getting it right now.
Your turn, Will.
I think Terquavian Smith is going to have a 30-point game. I think he's going to be so mad that North Carolina injured him and ruined the chance to win at the Smith Center and take it to the Tar Heels. So I think he'll do it, and I think it'll be an 85-70 Pack win.
Ooh, Wolfpack.
Our final game. That we're going to do some prediction videos later, but for now, I feel like we've talked about some games. We've definitely talked about the most important games of the week. So what game are you guys most excited for this week?
Honestly, I'm really excited about that Indiana Northwestern game. That's what's got me really excited.
Alabama, Tennessee is insane as well. Both of those. I mean, you got a lot of good games. Tennessee, Kentucky, to see if Kentucky can get back in the tournament picture. Just a lot of good games.
For me, it comes down to 3 that we covered. Indiana, Illinois, because like we stated before, and I'm going to say this real quick, but I just think Indiana can just, Northwestern's dangerous, but I think Indiana can just ease through Northwestern to a degree. I think it'll be easier than going through a battle with Illinois. North Carolina and North Carolina State, the battle of a portion of North Carolina, and Tennessee, Alabama, because Tennessee is to a degree fighting for its life. To a degree, because they're in a losing skid, and to Jackson's point, I think maybe before we went live, every team that's beat Bama has turned to garbage. So the trick would then be, if Tennessee does knock Bama off, is Kentucky the one to come out with the win? So that one is interesting to me as well.
I'm most excited about. Oh,
I'm just gonna say real quick, the Utah-Arizona game, Northwestern Indiana for me. Go ahead, Will.
I'm excited for the Baylor-Kansas game. Battle at the top of the pack, the last two champs, both teams playing really well. I think that'll be
So
a
many good
phenomenal game.
games.
Oh yeah.
So check
And-
us out on Thursday. We got another show going on there, and it's going to be great.
Like, comment, subscribe, and click on the notification bell, and we'll catch you next time.
Subscribe to all of us if you like our content, guys. Thanks for being here.